Hey there, welcome to Craft Central Designs. Today I'm sharing with you a very beautiful Christmas angel dressed in two different types of tulle with pinched snowball tulle squares for wings, a silver glitter ornament for the head, white pearls fed on a wire for the halo, and of course pretty ribbon bows with shimmery embellishments, all mounted on an 8-inch tall styrofoam cone. This project may perhaps appear complex to create, but it in actuality is surprisingly very, very easy to make. Let me show you how, step by step. This angel could be made as a tree topper or as a display piece. That's the back side I'm showing you there. For a mantle, a shelf, or a table to complement your Christmas decor. Welcome to my channel today. Please remember to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, share my channel with others, and as always, leave me your comments. I love receiving them. Okay, let's get creating. Let's look at the items that I used to create this angel today. I have a roll of sparkly tulle from Michaels. It's a Celebrate product. It has large shimmery little specks all over it, as you can see there. It's 6 inches wide, and I'm going to be using the entire spool of that tulle. I'm going to be piling it up in 4 pieces at 40 inches long. I'll go over that in a bit. And I'm just going to be gathering that. And this is the easiest thing to do. I'm going to show you how if you've never gathered with a needle and thread before. So super simple. Now I have this other, it's more of a fabric than a tulle. It's a polka dot, very, very beautiful. I had gotten this at Joann's when they were open, of course. But you could use any type of tulle for this. Now, this is the underskirt. I have an overskirt, that's what I'm calling it, that I'm using that sparkly tulle. And then this is the underskirt. So this angel has actually 2 layers of skirts. And this is also 40 inches long. And I have this folded in half, and it's actually about 44 inches wide, and it's folded in half. So it's about 22 inches long or wide. I have here a styrofoam cone. This one is almost 9 inches, about 8.5 inches. And I got this at a Hobby Lobby. So I'm going to be using this to mount all of my angel embellishments on. And the head is going to go right there at the top. And I have a little silver glittery ornament, which I believe I picked up in a container from the Dollar Tree. I believe you could get a styrofoam cone at the Dollar Tree, but I'm not sure how tall it is. You might want to check that. The dimensions that I'm giving you for this angel are going to be for the cone that is, it's about 8.5 inches tall. I'm going to be using some white wired satin ribbon. This is a Robert Stanley ribbon, but you can use any white satin ribbon that you might have on hand. I believe that's 7/8 inch. And then I have a little container of little pearls that I'm going to be feeding onto a wire to create the halo. I'm going to be using a wire here that's a little bit heavier than the floral wire that I generally use. And I don't know the gauge of that wire. I'm sorry. It has no writing on the spool. But I can tell you it's definitely heavier than a floral wire. It's a pretty sturdy wire, so you're going to need something like that to create a halo. Now, that package of little embellishments there, I had gotten those from Temu. At some point in time, because I do bookmarks, and I love to use those on bookmarks. So at some point in time, I had ordered gold and silver, and they're wonderful, actually. They come about 12 in a pack, and they're all different, and that's what I love about it, because I actually have a selection. I have a needle and thread, and I have some straight pins there. You're going to need also some pearl straight pins, which are going to be longer, more like little boutonniere pins. We'll talk about that later, but that's how I put the wings on. All right, so I have this piece of fabric 40 inches long, around 40 inches long will do it. A little bit less would be fine as well. But I folded it in half, so now it's around, I want to say around 22 inches wide now that I folded it in half. Now on the edge with the fold, and this is very important, use the edge with the fold. I'm going to knot several times my thread on the end. I'm going to thread a needle with about maybe 18 inches of thread. I'm going to start at one end, about an inch down from the fold. Now, this is important because when you finish gathering this, what you're going to have is a pretty ruffle here along the top. That ruffle is going to go around the neck of the angel. So this is going to create a nice little finishing touch for that angel. So what you're going to do is lay your fabric out so you can comfortably work your way down the fabric. I do about 3 to 4 stitches, and then I stop and slowly pull my thread through. And what I'm doing here is just gathering that fabric along my thread or on my thread. It's going to go right there, attached at the very top like that to that cone. Okay, so you want to be careful to pull your thread through slowly, and I've said this on many of my previous videos. I do a lot of gathering because I do tutus, so so you've seen this before if you're one of my regular subscribers that watch my channel often. Again, about 3, maybe 4 to 5 stitches, and then I stop and I pull my thread and gather my tool on the thread. Several stitches, remember about 1 inch from the edge where that fold is. And then I'm going to pull it through nice and slow. Very important to pull it through slowly or you'll get a knot. Better off to just take your time on this part. So do 4 or 5 stitches, stop, pull your thread. 4 or 5 more stitches, stop, pull your thread till you get all the way down to the very end of the fabric. And what you will have once you get to the end is this beautiful little tulle skirt. So I had this idea, I don't know, just popped into my head that I wanted to do a 2-layer skirt for this angel. And I wanted one of the layers to be shorter and then the other one to just be resting underneath the top layer. Yeah, don't ask me where I got the idea. It just sort of came to me, just like a lot of my project ideas just come to me. And so that's what I'm doing today. And I did an angel last holiday season, but I'm completely changing it up this time and doing something different. I believe this one is even bigger than the one from previous. But once I've determined, back to the skirt, once I've determined that my skirt fits all the way around the top of that cone, then I'm going to do a few stitches to just basically tie that off so it does not come off doesn't come apart, that fabric does not slide off the thread, in plain words. Now, this is going to be a little bit long. You are going to have to trim it up. So, that fabric that I originally told you to do about 40 inches, about 22 inches wide. You don't need it quite so wide because I ended up cutting off about 2 to 3 inches off the hem. But you do need a good sized piece. I want to say you want to do it at least 18 inches. And that would be 18 inches after you've folded it in half. So that would be about 36 inches wide then. And then 40 inches long. So 36 inches wide, 40 inches long. I'll put that in the description box. And that's the measurement that I came up with after I did a little alterations on the bottom of that skirt. So all the pertinent measures that I do along the way here, I will put that in the description box. Okay. Now I'm doing my sparkly tulle. Now this is only 6 inches wide. So you're going to cut that off the spool in 40-inch sections. When you do that, you will use the entire roll. Then you're going to place it on top of each other. Stack it up, your 4 pieces. Match it up as close as you can. Then you're going to gather that one as well. Now this one you don't have to worry about too much having to do with the edges. Just I would go in about maybe 1/4 of an inch and just do your stitches all along that. Now this is going to gather up very beautifully and very nicely because it's an actual tulle. So very easy to gather. But the fabric was as well. Now, what to do if you can't find a nice fabric that you can use for the underskirt like I did? You can use another piece of tulle. You would just have to get it off the bolt and have someone cut it for you at, like, say, for example, Hobby Lobby. You could do that. You could create an underskirt just out of plain tulle. Or you could use some type of other stiff fabric. Some type of fabric or maybe a lace. That would be pretty as well, a lightweight lace. And you could do the same thing with those same dimensions that I gave you for that other skirt that we just gathered. The one where you folded it over together and left the ruffle, that's the one I'm referring to, that you might need to get something off the bolt for that. Okay, so you're going to just take a look and see how everything is looking here. If your gathers are straight, how it's going to look on your piece, how will your ornament look sitting on top of there, how does your fabric, I'm going to refer to this as fabric because it's really more that than tulle. And I do have to do a trim up on the bottom, like I mentioned. But I would rather have more than enough than not enough. Because I wanted that fabric to basically touch the tabletop wherever it's sitting, or be at least as long as that cone. So, you have to, I had to do a little bit of figuring out how to measure things out. So that's what I'm going to include in the description box for you. All right, so I have a little roll of this Snowball tulle from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut it in 6 by 6 sections. Now this tulle is around on the bolt. It's like around 6 inches. That's close enough. So then I just went along and cut 6-inch sections. Now, I want squares here. And I want 4 squares per wings, if that makes sense. Cut 4 and then cut 4 more. So 8 altogether. And these are just going to be in little squares. Now, wait till you see how easy this is to form these wings. And it's so pretty. I am a huge Snowball tulle fan, as you've heard me say many times. but this is so pretty on an angel. So I'm going to place my square on the table and I'm going to pinch it right in the center. And then I'm going to scrunch it up with my hand. It's kind of like when you're putting tissue paper in a gift bag, same difference. Pinch it and scrunch it up. Then I'm going to place them in my hand. I'm going to do 4 of those. Place it on the table, pinch it in the center, scrunch it up. And 1 more. Pinch it in the center, scrunch it up. Now all of my little end pieces are collected in my hand there. That's what you see right here. Now I threaded a needle and put a knot in the end. And now how am I going to keep them all together? So simply, I'm going to put a few stitches right through that tulle, going into it different directions. So I make sure that I make contact with all 4 of those pieces. And it's that easy to collect them. Now you have one of your wings for your angel. I put maybe 6-8 stitches in there. And this works fantastic. Now, how are we going to attach these wings to our styrofoam angel? So easy. You're going to need some pearl pins. Now, if you can't find these in the sewing department, try going into the bridal department at Hobby Lobby and just get like the boutonniere pins, and that works really great. So now I'm going to do the other wing, and I thought I would just show you that one more time. But we're simply going to take those pearl pins and push them into the styrofoam cone and hold on our Snowball tulle wings. This works so beautifully. There goes piece number 2. Keep it all scrunched up in my left hand while I do it with the pinching with my right. Pinch it, scrunch it up. Hold it together at the bottom, at the base. And the last one, pinch it in the center, scrunch it up, turn it over. Make sure those are all collected there. Again, put a knot in the end of your thread and put about 6 to 8 stitches in there. And now your wings are all ready to be put on your angel. Now, I mentioned at the onset how easy this actually is. It looks very beautiful and elegant, but it actually was just really, really easy to do. Okay, so I have all my stitches in there, and my wings are all ready to go. Now, when I go to put these on, I just kind of take my fingers and shape them in a way that I think is going to look pretty as as wings on my angel. I had a halo on my mind because that's coming up here really quick. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and glue on my skirt. Now, this part, this is the underskirt, the one with the ruffle that goes around the neck. You're going to place your styrofoam cone so that you're gluing it on, but leaving the 1-inch ruffle above the top edge of the cone. That ornament is going to sit down in those ruffles at the top of that cone. And that's going to create the ruffle around the face of the angel. So remember to leave that ruffle free up at the top of your cone. Be careful on this part. Don't burn yourself. See how I leave that ruffle out there? Now, as far as closure on the back of the skirt, I could care less. To tell you the truth, it's never going to show. All right, so you can close it up if you want in whatever manner you want, but I'm just leaving mine because it's actually completely concealed, and you're never going to notice that I didn't sew the back of the skirt closed. But you do you. If you want to do that, you go right ahead. Okay, so now I have my pretty ruffle here at the top and my cone peeking through. I'm just loving this. I put a little extra adhesion there using my hot glue gun. I actually had my glue gun on a low temp setting because of working with the styrofoam. So you might want to do that if you have a dual temp glue gun. Now I did trim off the excess on the bottom of that skirt already. I don't think I showed you that I did that, but I did. All right, now I'm going to take my overlay, my other tulle skirt, the shorter one that's 6 inches long. I'm going to wrap that around, and I'm going to place it so that the closure of the back of the skirt is exactly in the same place as the closure of the underskirt. So I'm playing where the seams for my skirts are going to be in the back in the same area. Now I have that little gathered area there from the tulle, and I'm just going to glue that right down at the base of my ruffles. Now don't worry about what the gathers look like because we're going to be covering that up with a very pretty white satin ribbon, and those gathers will never show. So I decided to get out my silicone makeup applicator, which I use to keep from burning myself. And when I'm working with tulle or burlap or anything like that. So I'm going around with my hot glue in small sections until I get all the way around the top of that cone. And this is going to be my sparkly skirt overlay on my angel. Now, like I said, if you don't care for the shorter overlay, you could simply just do it full length. That's up to you. This is just something a little bit different than the average that you might see in angels that are handmade. Okay, so I reached all the way around to the back where I started, and I have that all adhered now. Now you're going to see me put on a very pretty ribbon on here in just a bit from Hobby Lobby. It's a white satin with a pattern on it with silver trim, a delicate silver trim on the edges. And boy, it was just made for this angel. I'll show it to you here in just a bit. Now, don't worry about, fixing the skirt and all that now. You still have a number of steps to go here. But when the time comes to really fluff this up, you're going to be surprised how beautiful this fans out, this skirt. Because it's tulle, because of the type of fabric that I used on the underskirt, when you just basically pull those layers apart, you can make this angel just as full skirted as you would like. That's the beauty of tulle. Now, that fabric that I used underneath, like I said, it's close to being like a tulle, but it's not quite. It's more of a lace. So, very, very pretty though. Okay, so I took a piece of wire about 12 inches long. And this is the heavier wire now. Now, I need to form a halo here. I'm going to start feeding some little pearls on it to this wire. This is going to help me get a visual of my halo, how big I need for it to be, and how big in circumference I need for it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and put my pearls on. Now, what size pearls you use, completely up to you. I actually used various sizes on my halo. So I mixed mine up. These are white, very iridescent pearls. Now, some pearls have that kind of creamy color. You want to be careful that you're using white pearls if you're using this particular white tool. So there's, either white pearls or that kind of creamy color, which is very pretty as well. And if you were doing this in like an off-white skirt and using golds, which would be gorgeous as well, then you would go for those pearls that are the off-white color. So I determined through trial and error that this halo should be around 2 inches in circumference. And that will sit very nicely over the head of the angel. Once I've determined that I have that in the right shape, I'm going to twist my wire and close that off. Now I can shape that as much or as little as I need to. And I'm going to have one extra wire there, which I'm going to snip off. Then I'll just have that little extra wire that's coming down from when I twisted my wires. Okay, so that I'm going to feed more pearls on. That's going to be the stem, if you will. I'm showing you it's 2 inches there. The stem, if you will, of the halo, which is going to be glued to the back of the head or the ornament, and the little nub of that stem I'm also going to put down in the back behind the ruffle and glue it as well there. So I just want my halo to sit nicely on the head of my angel or over the head of my angel. So what you see me doing here is a lot of trial and error. I often figure everything out as I go along, and usually that's what you're seeing me do here. But for me, that's part of the fun of crafting, is just figuring it all out. And then, the joy of having it go as I like it, that's even better. Love that part. But I had a little experience with the angel that I created last holiday season. So I had kind of an idea where I was going with all of this. But again, this one is different. You could probably go back to my playlist and find the one that I did previously. This one you're going to see is a little bit different. Okay, now I have to be sure that I have the stem of my halo directly in the back of the head, which is going to be in alignment with the seam of my skirts. So the back of my piece has a definite midline, if you will, where everything aligns up. Now for my halo, when I place that on, I am going to use a tacky glue and hot glue for the immediate hold. Okay, so what am I doing now? Well, this angel's going to have bows for sure. This is going to be the back. Now, I did this on my previous angel and I was absolutely loved it. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take a white satin wired ribbon. I believe this is 5/8 inch. This one is a Robert Stanley ribbon from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to leave about an 8-inch tail because I want a ribbon tail going down the back of my angel's dress. I'm going to make my loops around 5 inches. I'm going to create a 4-loop bow here. Pinching it in the center, holding my loops with my left hand, twisting before I fold over my next loop. Now I'm not going to do a center loop on this because I'm putting one of those pretty little embellishments right in the center of this bow, and oh my, is that beautiful? So in the back of this angel, you could place this angel anywhere, and from the front to the back, it's going to be gorgeous. Now, I mentioned that you could make this into a tree topper. You certainly can. You could create a hole up through the bottom of your styrofoam. That branch that always pokes straight up out of the top of the tree can sit, and you can place that angel right on the top of your tree. Now, you just need to figure out how deep to make it. If it were me, I would take a small Phillips head screwdriver, and I would screwdriver a hole up through the bottom of the styrofoam, and deep enough so that it will sit on there without falling off. Now, that would probably be maybe several inches at least. You might have to do a little bit of trial and error on that as well. But if you really want an angel that's absolutely stunning on the top of your tree, this is the one. Otherwise, no need to do anything to the bottom, except for I do a little finishing touch on the very bottom of the styrofoam cone, which I'm going to show you here in a bit. Now I'm taking some hot glue. For my little embellishment here, these are intended to be pins. So they have little pins on the back of them. I just take my wire cutters and snip that off. The pin and the little bracket that holds the pin, easy enough to just snip that off. Now I'm also going to use one of those on the front. Okay, now there's that gathered area there that we really need to take care of that and just completely conceal it. This is that beautiful ribbon that I said I felt was made for this piece. You could use a silver metallic-y rickrack if you want. I'm going to use this beautiful ribbon. This is a Hobby Lobby ribbon. They actually have this. I just saw it 2 days ago at Hobby Lobby. It's a white satin ribbon. You can't see it, but it has a design on it. Very beautiful. And it's trimmed in silver. How appropriate is that for this angel? Now I'm going to measure this out for you. I ended up cutting about 24 inches. Now I'm going to find the center of that. And then I'm going to find the center midline in the back of my angel. And I'm going to tack that ribbon down right over those gathers. Not over the ruffle, but below the ruffle. Very important to have that ruffle. I'm telling you, you're going to appreciate it. How pretty it looks around the head of that angel. So I take that little center point there, right at the very center, in the back. Put a dab of glue there. Now I'm going to wrap it around and cover up all of those gathers from that tulle overskirt that I created. I'm going to create an X, folding that ribbon over itself in an X shape. I'm going to pull it nice and tight. I'm going to make sure that I have my gathers all covered up before I start gluing. Then I'm going to put a dab of glue there. I have it nice and tightly pulled over those gathers. Now I could do further securing of that ribbon by slipping a little bit of glue underneath that ribbon all the way around. But right now I would just want to be sure I have it nice and tight and placed where I want it to be. So I folded over my ribbon, as I mentioned, in an X, and then I'm just going to place a dab of glue there to secure that. Now I'm not going to be leaving it to appear like that. There's going to be a little bow that's going over that X area where we crisscross that ribbon. I left my tails long until I determined exactly how short I wanted them. And I'm going to create a little 2-loop bow here to go right at the neck as well, out of that same ribbon. Now, any adjustments that I need to make in the placement of that ribbon, easy enough to do that, and place a little dab of glue if it needs any help sitting correctly. Okay, now you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm going to tell you what I'm doing is I'm taking my wire cutters, snipping off that pin that I just suggested that these little embellishment pieces have on the back, because that's what they're supposed to be. Do I want to pin that on? No, I want to glue it on. The pin makes it stand up more than I want it to. I want it to be flush on that ribbon. Okay, so now I have my floral wire, the 26 gauge. This is the very lightweight wire, not the heavier wire that we used for the halo. I'm going to leave about a 6-inch tail, and I'm just going to simply do a fold over loop, just like that. It's kind of what I call my figure 8 bow. So I'm going to have 4 tails going down the front of this dress, and it's just so beautiful because this ribbon is just so made for this piece. Perfect choice for ribbons. I'm going to wrap my floral wire around, pull it super tight, gather up the center of that bow, snip off the excess. Now those are small loops, maybe in 2 inches in length, and that's going to be glued right there to cover up that X area where we did that crisscross of the ribbon. Oh my goodness. Yeah, just too beautiful, right? Is it so pretty? Yeah, I'm a little bit crazy for this angel. I think it just turned out so gorgeous. All right, so I'm going to take my little embellishment. Now, what's really fun in those packages of embellishments, now, I'm sure you could find that at Hobby Lobby in that jewelry making department. I'm sure you could find something at Michael's. I'm sure you could find it on Amazon. I happened to get mine on Temu because I was in a bookmark making mode for a while, and I love to make elegant bookmarks. Maybe I'll make some after the first of the year when things are slow, so you could see those. Fantastic gifts, by the way. But they're really beautiful on bookmarks, so I have a bunch of them, and they were so inexpensive. But each one in the package is different. It's just so nice to have those. Those were from Temu, and I don't often order from Temu, but now and again, they have things that you just don't see anywhere else. So, a couple of times a year, maybe I'll go and do a Temu order. All right, so we're on the back of our angel now. Now, this is on that center midline that we have going on the back of the angel. I'm going to put my bow right up there underneath the ruffle. And I'm just going to glue that on. Oh, just the appearance of that ribbon going down the back of that angel is just so pretty. Look at that. Now, I don't dovetail. This is not a dovetailing type of look. This is an angle. This is a very classic, beautiful ribbon tails, and we want to treat them accordingly. So beautiful. All right, so I have my long pins with the pearls. I figure that's the most perfect thing to use on this, considering if the pearl were to show, yeah, it just goes with the halo, right? So I just position my wings. I imagine the midline, if I were to draw a line down the side of my angel, I place my wings just slightly behind that line toward the back. And then I just simply, once I'm happy with the placement, I just poke my pins in. I secured them with each with about 3 pins. But the great thing about this is, while you're putting your wings on, if you're not happy with the way they look, maybe the Snowball tool needs to be adjusted, or you want to turn them around or whatever, you could just pull it right back out. That's the beauty of this. So remember, just slightly behind the side of that angel. And then I just fluff them up. Just like I fluff up the tutus that I make out of Snowball tulle, I'm fluffing up the wings. Oh boy, this is just becoming more beautiful by the minute. Same thing on this side. I'm going to find my placement, poke it in with some pearl pins. So easy to do. This just goes right into the styrofoam and it holds very, very well. If you have any concerns about just sticking the pins in, you can always put a little dab of Aleene's Tacky on the pin itself and then push it in. So that's extra security. Do I think you need to? No, I don't. But if you feel the need to have be sure that they're double secured in there, I would just put a dab of tacky glue on the sharp part of your pin. And yeah, that's good. Poke it in there. And yeah, what do we have left to do after this? Well, I am going to finish off the bottom of the cone. Now that's, of course, unless you're making it a tree topper. But we also have one extremely important thing to do that makes the angel the angel. We need to put on the halo. Looking beautiful. Okay, so I have my halo all ready to go. And I'm showing you the pins here. Mine, I think they're about 2 inches long. But even if you can only find the longer ones, you could still do it. Just push them down into the styrofoam. Okay, now that halo, the stem of the halo, I mentioned this before. I want to say it's maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches. I figured that I wanted my halo to be just over the top of the head of the angel, maybe about 1/2 inch off the head. So let me guess that that's around 2 inches. And I'm going to tuck that right behind the ruffle that's going around the head of my angel. And I'm going to make sure I have a good dab of Aleene's Tacky glue on that end of my stem. Now, I am going to have to use some hot glue to get at least an initial hold on the back of the head, but you can see the tacky glue there. Don't worry about that. It dries clear. Now, you want it directly going down the back of the head, center line down the back of the head, in alignment with all of the other times that you created that center back line with your bow, with your embellishment, with the closure of your skirt. Okay, now I'm going to put a little bit of Aleene's Tacky glue on the underside of that stem that presses against the head. Wherever I can glue, I glue. And I did make sure that I had a good amount of glue on there. Now I'm going to let that sit until it's completely dry. And now you have a beautiful pearl halo over the top of your angel. Okay, so I took a piece of white felt, about, an area that I thought would cover the bottom of that cone. Do you need to do this? Do you have to do? No, you don't. It's just a little finishing touch. Now, if you feel the desire to cover your cone with fabric, you're going to have to do that first, obviously, before you start working on all the other elements. I feel that it's adequately covered between all of my layers of skirt, and I'm fine with it just like that. But just saying, if you want to cover up the styrofoam, if there's something about that bothers you underneath there, just cover it with a piece of fabric and then continue on and do all the other steps. Me, I just don't think it matters. It doesn't show. It's hidden underneath all those layers of fabric. So then I just go around and trim up that felt, and now I have a nice little soft finishing covering for the bottom of my angel. Now it's time to do all the fluffing, to trim up any ribbons that you want trimmed. As you can see, I leave mine going down the front of my angel. Fluff everything out. Pull the layers of your tulle apart and watch how full this skirt becomes. Simply gorgeous. Tell me what you think of this one. Absolutely love it. One final look. Let me know if you think you might want to make this one. And remember, if you are not currently a subscriber, I hope you will consider becoming one, so you will be, alerted, if you set your notifications, that is, to future upcoming videos. I post a couple of times a week, sometimes more. All right. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. And let me know what you think of this angel in the comments. Okay, until next time, you all take care.